In this video, we're going to see some introduction to Rhino and Grasshopper. This is going to be a multi-part series where I'll go through beginner to more advanced lessons for Rhino and Grasshopper. So let's get started. What's going on, fellas? I'm Geo and this is Geo Creations. Let's jump right into the video. Before opening Rhino, let me go through some important steps and I'll let you know what are the stuff I'm going to cover in this video. So first, let's start with what all the stuff Rhino and Grasshopper does and some intro about parametric design. And then we'll go through how to get started with Rhino and a little bit of introduction to Grasshopper. So first things first, let's see what exactly is parametric design. So Rhino is not exactly a parametric design software. Parametric design is any design that's based on algorithms. It's based on mathematical input and step-by-step instructions, or otherwise called as algorithms. So Rhino as a standalone software cannot do that. It could be done only if it's used along with Grasshopper. First, let's get started with Rhino. So Rhino is basically a CAD software. CAD means computer-aided design. It's a designing software. It's really known for its 3D capabilities, but the 2D is also absolutely amazing. We'll look into it as we go on. These are three different 3D model categories that we can see inside Rhino. If I wanted to break it down, I would say Nurbs are basically, it stands for non-uniform rational basis spline. It's like raster and vector. So vector would have a proper mathematical data associated with it. So basically the same thing. If it's a sphere, it would know the U and V data, and without using multiple polygons, you can get a really smooth output, and it would be a lot more precise than mesh. So let's come to mesh. Mesh is basically multiple polygons wrapped up together. Any 3D modeling software, for example, Blender, Maya, 3ds Max, etc., even SketchUp and AutoCAD would have mesh as its base 3D modeling category. Nurbs, for example, you can see this in software like SolidWorks. Even Houdini could access Nurbs and mesh at the same time. And finally, SubD. SubD is a subdivision algorithm. Every software has its own stuff going on. Maya has its own, Blender has its own. Likely, Rhino has its own SubD algorithm. Basically, what SubD does is it takes the measures, detects the corners and edges. It just basically smooths it down. As a result, it will make it a lot easy to edit, and also would make the models very light because it would comparatively use a lot less quads to create that complex object. Right, finally, we have to be aware of concepts like U and V. So these are imaginary lines that going through surfaces, which would allow you to determine the shape of the node. So as we move on, especially with Grasshopper, this will be a lot more useful. Let's get started with Rhino first, and that would be like the half of this video. For the next half, we'll go through the basics of Grasshopper, and also we'll try to incorporate the Rhino model that we created in the first half into Grasshopper, right? Cool, let's get started. Let's open Rhino real quick. So whatever I'm typing would be visible in here, so you can take a look. And and the highlighted mouse would be an indication for where I click and everything. So it will be easier for you to keep track of what I'm doing. And I would try not to cut this video as much as possible so that you can follow along and you can get a clear understanding of what's going on. All right, as you can see, these four tabs are the viewports. And this one is the perspective viewport, which we're going to be using most of the time. And basically what it does is when you draw something here, you can see the same output in all four viewports, basically. That's why the viewport is 4. You'll be able to see different views of the same object simultaneously. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to blow up the perspective view to take a good look at what I'm doing. And if I wanted to change it, I would change it from here, right? So that's one thing. And I'm going to change it to shaded view so that it's going to be in 3D, like, you can see the shape clearly first. Yeah. All right. Now, next step, we'll see what are the tools are and what everything does in the interface. So first things first, let's get this out. These two are plugins. Don't worry about it. These are for Unreal Engine and V-Ray. We're not going to deal with that right now. And here you get like 16 different toolbar set. Mostly we'll be sticking with standard toolbar. And then we'll be going through other toolbars whenever required. You can see the icons and hover over it to see what it does. Also, you can use this command bar. So there are two ways to input your commands. One using your standard toolbar. Now, another method would be using the command bar over here. All right, cool. So first, let's get the navigation out of the way. So if to orbit, you may have to drag your right mouse with it, and you can, drag it like that. Zoom in, zoom out, you can use your scroll wheel, and then finally selection, there you go, left click. And then you may wonder what this is. This is Gumball. You can turn this off and on whenever necessary. I would suggest you turn it on as soon as you come here, because it'll save you a lot of time moving things here and there. So that'll be one thing. Next thing would be the properties bar. You can see the color wheel icon over here. This is basically the properties bar, where you can, whenever you select an object, it will show the properties. If you want to change certain aspects of it, you can change. For example, you can change the layer. There you go. So that's pretty much it. And then you can see, the lens length, which is basically the focal length of it. If you want to see the interior space or something, for example, if you want to zoom in really close to any object, for example, let's say I'm going to explode it and then pull it out, delete it. I'm going to delete it. And then let's consider this as the interior space. And if you want to zoom in closer or take a view from here, you can see that the zooming would clip and it won't allow you to, properly view this particular thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the focal point, FOV, field of vision. That would be done by changing the lens length. So for example, if you reduce the length, the more area you can see more areas in there. So one way is to change the lens length, let's say 15. Yeah, we can see more of it. It'll skew it to an extent. By default, it will be like in 50. You can also use Control, Shift, and Alt. You just, have to hold it all together and use the right mouse button and zoom out and drag it down to decrease the FOV and increase the FOV as much as you want. I'm going to put it in 45 or something, the sweet spot. There you go. All right, that's fair enough. Okay, so that's done. And what's next? We got layers. So layers works exactly like in any other software. For example, AutoCAD can change the active layer by just changing here. You can hide a particular layer, you can lock it, you can change the color of the layer. For example, if I change, I just created a new layer, by the way. If I want to change the layer of this, go to properties, change the layer, maybe layer 2, whatever. And then you can lock it or even hide it or even change the color of it. Yep. So once I change the color, or you can choose any of these color, you can see how it changes over here. Right. Cool. So that's pretty much about layers and, properties tab. And then there is materials tab, where you can, assign certain materials to these objects. So for example, let's say you go into rendered view, and you have to go to rendered view to view the material. And so this is it's not material tab, it's render tab, by the way. And this material tab, you have to add a new material over here, and then you'll be able to assign a custom material, for example. So this is custom material. I'm going to name it material 1, just for example. I'm going to change the color to, let's say, orange. And glossiness, I'm going to increase it to a fair extent. Reflectivity and transparency, a tiny bit, maybe. And then I can assign, let's say I want to assign to these two faces. So I have to select it, right click here, assign to object, and you can see the material is assigned to that particular face. So that's pretty much about that material tab. And then one more thing is the display tab. This is not turned on by default, and you can just go to the settings button, and you can turn this on. It's pretty helpful. I mean, I can turn this off and turn this off. This might not be useful that much, but this will be a bit more useful. For example, let's say I'm in pen view. So this pen view is a pretty good way for getting technical drawings. By default, this won't be like this. The color the background would be use application settings. So I mean, not this. So yeah, the background would be a different file basically. Yeah, this is the one. This is the default background of this pen rendering settings. So guess what? I don't like it. So what I'm gonna do, if I want to take a proper technical output, I just have to change the image file to solid color maybe, and then yeah, you can change the view to, for example, isometric. So yeah, I can get like a technical drawing out of it. And yeah, I can finally use display capture to export it. Now let's get into actually drawing something. So as you can see here, these are icons for basic drafting and drawing. Would be better if you can just go through it and then experiment with it. I would just say whenever you draw something, you can start with the starting point, and then you can click the ending point, and you can start drawing. Or else you can, if you want to give a certain distance or the length of the line, for example, you can just start with it, and then you can type the length, for example, let's say 50 meters. And then you can see it's going to be asking for the angle now. So if I hold shift, this snap to 90 degrees. You can also turn on ortho, or by turning this on and holding a shift to release it, or you can use F8, whatever works. So yeah, that's how you can add dimensions to it. This is a polyline. You can explode it to make it into separate lines, explode, and yeah, now it's separate. You can also create single lines by just using this pop-up menu. You can go forward and draw single lines. Same thing, different ways to create drawings. And now let's say I'm just going to make a random 2D surface, or a one-dimensional a set of polylines into a surface, for example. So this is not a surface, right? So it's a polyline, and I'm gonna complete this with some tools for example, an arc. So and again, I have to turn this snap points on to make sure my object is snapping in the right points. So there we go. I can move it like that. So it's a closed set of geometry, and if I want to make this as a surface, I can join it together to edit it later easily. We can join and explode here. It's all simple. And then I can just go here, this pop-up menu, the surface pop-up menu, and then you can see surface from planar curves. And now you can see there's a surface that's formed. There's two ways to make it into 3D. One is to just type extrude, and you can extrude it. Or you can use this tiny little sphere in this gumball, drag it up, and you'll get a 3D surface, 3D box. So if I just want to give a certain distance, I can click it once and then type a distance, and there we go. So that's how, you just make a basic 3D object. Now, let's skip everything here. This is like split and Boolean option and all those stuff. We can get to it with the relevant exercises as we move on. For now, I'm just gonna concentrate on this gumball, and then we'll be doing certain things like experimenting with different commands, like AutoCAD commands that are repeating here. Mostly like 90% of AutoCAD commands would repeat here. For example, offset for offset. So stuff like that, basically. So first, let's see what we're gonna do next. So we did this. I'm gonna delete it. We're gonna deal with what gumball does and how we can work with it, and then gradually we can go through other stuff. So before that, if you're wondering how can I import AutoCAD drawing from here, it's this simple: file, import, and we can just select a DWG here, or just go to supported file, and you can import it. That's just simple. You can do that. I'm not going to show this right now, but if you're wondering if you can do a 2D drawing entirely inside Rhino, absolutely yes. I'm going to show an example of one of my recent projects that I did in my university. I can show an example, like to what extent you can do stuff in early in Rhino, and I would say the amount of detail I've achieved personally, I wouldn't be able to do that with AutoCAD, because I have combined that with Grasshopper to customize certain things like hatches, for example. Let's go through that pretty quick. So now you can see the amount of detail we can do. You can also have a proper layout tool, so you can see I have composed it in A1. The scale is basically, you can select this viewport. The scale is basically 1:120, and then here is a separate version of a zoomed in version. So if I go here, and if I want to show in a proper way, I can go to display, where is it? Display. You can turn on print view, so you can set a separate set of colors for colors and separate properties totally for print view. So there's a print view. I can go change the background to solid color, and that means white. Shaded. Yeah, fair enough. Let's go to wireframe. Yeah, let's make it solid color, and then convert it to white. There you go. And as you can see, this is more than enough to make a 2D drawing. So this drawing is from 3D, I would say. So I made the 3D model in Rhino and Grasshopper with a lot of different tools. And then when it comes to making a 2D model, 2D drawing, I had to cut it, you can see, and then I had to detail on top of it. And if you're wondering about these hatches and everything, these are stuff that I had to go dive deeper in Grasshopper and do something manually. So if you're interested in such things, you can leave that in comments. I can go through the process once we run through the whole Rhino and Grasshopper beginner series, and once we reach an advanced level, I would let you know how we can do all this stuff. Or if you guys want me to do this in a live stream, anywhere in the middle, do let me know. We'll do that clearly. All right, so let's just ignore this for now. We're going to get there pretty soon, one day. But right now, we're not going to focus on the 2D drawing or normal, drafting aspects of it. We're gonna see more fun aspects of it. So let me just close it. Okay, now let's take a quick look at Gumball, and then we can go through an exercise that combines Rhino and Grasshopper. So first, I'm gonna put a point in here. So this point is basically a zero-dimensional entity where you can extrude it in all direction. So you can see like the Gumball has the extrusion point in all directions. By the way, if you want to change the units, it's here, default, meters. You can just right click here, unit settings, and you'll be able to change the settings, unit settings basically. Let me right click here, unit settings, and then you'll be able to change your units whenever required. Right now, let's stick with meters. It's all good. Now I'm just going to extrude this point in Y direction, that is this green direction, to like 5 meters. There you go. And then I'm gonna extrude this bit in this direction, in red axis, that is like X axis, to another 5 meters. So what I have right now is a surface, right? Let's go to the top view. I can see there's a 5x5 surface right here. I can move it wherever I want. Always you have to type in the command, or you can use this particular icon over here. That's move. Basically, you can use that as well. It's all comes down to personal preference. If you want to do something accurate, you can use this command like move. Here's copy, and it's rotate, scale. It's all here. You can use certain things whenever it's necessary. For now, you can work with Gumball. So first, we can see like, let's go Z enter, S enter. You can zoom closer. And then like I'm going to extrude it up 5 meters again. So we got like a box that's 5x5x5, right? Now let's say I want to move this to a certain distance. I just have to pull this arrow, and there you go. So let's say I want to move this to like 20 meters. So I just have to click on it and then type 20, and there you go, 20. So let me select this and delete it. So we got like motion, like a movement here. And now let's say I want to copy this. So same thing, what we did for movement, but we have to hold on Alt this time. So while holding on Alt, you can just move it like that. So that's basically a copy. If you want to copy that in the opposite direction, in a particular distance, let's hold on Alt, click it. So that's 20 meters. We can add a minus to it. So that's minus 20. That's gone there. So that's how you can move or copy a certain object. Now let's say I want to rotate this. So what I can do is use this particular arc kind of object over here, click on it, and then type, let's say, 45 degrees. So that's a 45 degrees degree rotation over here. And then if I want to, you can do the same thing in all 3 directions. And let's say I want to change the center of rotation, or the reference point, or the base point, to another place. So one way to do it is using this white circle. Click on it, relocate Gumball, and then set your Gumball to a different location, and then you'll be able to move this with that base point, and also rotate or do whatever with it. Right. One more thing, if you want to move the Gumball wherever you want, you just have to hold on Control and then move it wherever you want. and then you'll be able to control it with that. Right? So yeah, that's pretty much what you do with it. And next thing would be a lot more interesting. So we got like, okay, that's not pretty much, that's it. Like, no, we have another thing that's scale. So yeah, you can see this like rectangular box over here. So that is basically what we use to scale things. So if you just drag it, it'll scale it in one dimension. If you hold shift and drag, it'll scale in all 3 dimensions basically. So that's how it works. To give a particular distance, you can say, let's say, I want to make it twice the size in 1 dimension. I just have to click here and just type 2. That's basically twice the size. If I want to make it half, I just have to type 0.5 and that's half. Let's say I want to scale it in a particular distance. I can type, let's say, 20 meters with a unit over here. And then I can type, I can, give the distance. So, but the thing is, with Gumball, it may not give the exact distance. It basically calculates it as 20 from this side and this side, making it 40 meters. So, doesn't really, it's not a big deal. Like, you can do the calculation by, divided by 2, basically. So what we can do is 20 divided by 2, and then that's basically the final output. So you'll be able to do that. Anyway, so that's basically it. Now finally, we can deal with subselection. So until now, we don't have we haven't seen a proper solution to select an individual object from here. For example, like if I select it, the whole box is going to be selected, right? Now, let's say I want to select a particular object over here, just the surface, for example, right? Let's say I want to select just the surface. So what can I do for that? I have to hold on Control and Shift. Hold on Control, Shift, see? Control, Shift, and then select it. And then now you can see it has selected one surface out of the whole bunch, right? So now I'll be able to do whatever I want with the surface. For example, I can scale it. I can extrude it. And now let's say I want to select one of these edges. So I can just select this edge over here, maybe another edge over here, and I can scale it like that. Why not? And then I can, move it up a bit, maybe. And then also I can select the vertices. So 1 and 2. And then I'll be able to move this up and create some crazy shape with it. There we go. That's one way. And then I can move it up and do all sorts of stuff with it. I can also flatten this by just scaling it to 0. And I can move it up like that. And then maybe scale it down. I can now do some crazy stuff with the other side as well. There you go. If you want to take down a particular object, you can select it and then copy that particular face, or you can completely explode it and then rip it apart one by one. And then if you want to join it together, you can just select it, join it. So whatever is connected would join as a single polysurface, or B-rip, in other words. Cool. I'm going to delete it. And let's go through, an exercise, right? So let's do an exercise with Rhino. And then we can see how to connect it with Grasshopper. Cool. So first, I'm going to go to top view or maybe front view. And let's create a tunnel. Let's create a tunnel, a parametric tunnel. We'll add some Grasshopper stuff into it and let's make it parametric. Why not? So it could be like a twisted tunnel, right? Cool. Let's take a rectangle here. And then I'll be able to create a rectangle like that. Let's give the dimensions maybe 5 meters into 5 meters. 5, just type enter and then 5. There you go. So 5 to 5. And I'm going to move it down a bit. So like I'm going to make this as the ground part and I'll be like, splitting it into 2 parts basically. So I'm going to make it like that. Let's go to perspective. Let's move this to a certain distance. Let's say I'm going to copy this to, let's say, in 5 meters over here. And I'm going to rotate it to, let's say, 45 meters. Let's move this one more time to another 5 meters. And then rotate it again to another 45 degrees. So now, what we're going to do is we're going to loft it. So loft is a command that would trace these, curves and makes it into a surface. So let me give you an example. It's like curve loft in SketchUp. So let's say I'm going to draw a certain curve. Let's copy this. Or let's go to front view again. Let's do some crazy stuff with it. I'm going to choose this particular spline and I'm going to draw something with it. It's not bad. And then there you go. I'm going to create a different set of spline with it and then maybe scale it down like that. And maybe even like that. And then copy this. So let's say this is what I want to loft. Well, let's manipulate it even more. So yeah, let's loft this one. So I just have to select these 3 and then type LOFT loft. And that will create this kind of surface to me. And then if I want to control this surface, I can turn this on, control points, and then I'll be able to control this into different shapes. Right? That's basically loft. And if you want to create a surface thickness to it, you can just type offset SRF of the surface, and then you'll be able to flip to your desired direction and give a distance, let's say 3, and that's basically offset. And if you feel like this is ugly, like the ISO curves, you can choose to hide it in display tabs here. So that'll look clean. If you want to do an object level settings, you can, instead of doing this, you can go to properties and hide this ISO curves. And that's basically hidden. Yeah, cool. Now let's go back to the exercise that we are trying to do. Let's loft this one. So select these 3 one by one, maybe. Let's type LOFT loft. And let's make sure the direction is right. So yeah, that's basically right. So hit OK. And now I'm going to go to top view maybe. So let's take down these wireframes. We already created the surface. So we just got rid of the wireframes. And let's say I want to increase the length of it a bit. I can scale it in 1 dimension using this tool, scale 1D. I'm going to scale it to a certain extent like that. Cool, that seems all right. Now, let's move it a bit further from the origin. That's fine. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this from here, so I can get a proper base for this tunnel. So first, I'm going to make a surface that's going to be the cutter. So this surface is going to be the cutter. I'm going to split this into two. So what I'm going to do, select this part, split, select this cutter. You can see here what it is asking for. It's asking for cutting objects. So here we are. Once it's done, hit enter. So I'd be able to delete this and also this. So it's split into two basically, right? So I now got a proper twisted tunnel. I can go through it and that shape is done basically. Now let's make it more exciting. Let's say we can divide this into multiple pieces and make something exciting, for example. Or else I have another idea, like we can make one particular piece from here into something else and another piece into maybe using Grasshopper. We can do something crazy with this. And before that, we can have fun, have a little bit of fun with transformation tools a little bit. Let's go to transform, and I'm going to bend this to a tiny bit, let's say, like that. So that'll bend the whole tunnel. Yeah, you can work with that, I guess. Or we can bend this later after, dividing this into multiple pieces, so that it'll be a bit more easier. Okay, so to divide this into multiple pieces, I'm gonna make multiple cuts using a lot of different lines. So first, I'm gonna explode this. Okay, I'm gonna explode this, and just to be clear, or towards what I'm working on, I'm just gonna isolate this particular bit, so we know that's what we're working on. We can use layers, or we can also use this isolation method that I use usually. So I'm gonna isolate it. So using this tool basically. So what happens here? I just isolated everything except for this. So I just hid everything except for this. Now I'm gonna add some lines here. So before drawing line in top view, I'm gonna make sure the project option is on. So basically what project does is, even if I'm drawing, selecting these part, it'll make sure it's always in the C plane, that's the ground plane. If the project is off, whatever I draw would be parallel to this particular point that I selected. So make sure you have this project on when you do certain things to avoid mistakes. So project, there you go. And this is like a line. I'm gonna hold on shift. So that's the start of the line, right? So, and the end of the line, we can determine the end of the line pretty quick. Before that, I'm just going to measure this just to be safe, and just to know what the size is. So let's say I want to divide this into 50 pieces. So I'm going to create an array of 50 different lines. So what I'm going to do, select the array option. Here's the array option. Let's go to this drop-down menu and let's select linear array. Number of items, let's say 50. And here's the start point. And for the end point, we have to determine the gap, the proper gap. You can scale it down later, but if you want to be accurate, you can just type 16 divided by 50. That would be the right size. So as you can see, it's almost there, it's not there yet, but that would be the proper cut, to be honest with you. We can live with that. So it's divided by 50. Now it's not very accurate with this distance, but that's accurate enough, I would say. We can delete this as well. Cool. Now, I can get rid of this. Now I'm going to cut this into multiple pieces. So how can I do that? As just like how we split this ground part in here. Yeah, we can unhide everything for now just to show you. Just like how we split this ground part. I can split this, use the same technique to cut all these stuff. So I'm gonna select this. Let's go select the split icon over here. I'm gonna go to top view, select all the cutters, hit enter. And now what happened? It cut right through the surface to create this multiple interesting set of pieces. And I can see like there's a disconnect over here. So maybe what I can do is I can copy one thing with reference to the previous one and then cut this separately just to be sure. So select it, split, and then cut it again. There you go. That's kind of perfect. If we do it once more, it'll be perfect, but it would lose that 16 meters, but it's fine. It doesn't matter. We'll do it once more. Why not? Let's select it, split, or let's leave it like that because, you know, the other stuff, it will be affected, or we can show all of this. Select these three, all these three, split, and then we can cut all these three together so that we can get rid of the last bit, the annoying bit, like to make it very accurate. Yeah, cool then. Now it's all perfect. I can delete all this stuff, maybe select, like save it. There you go. I'm gonna hide the ISO lines for now, but it's not very important for now. All right, so we got multiple tiny pieces, right? I'm going to select this bit. Like, let's isolate this once more just to not get confused, you know. I'm going to isolate this again. Let's go on to top view, and I'm going to select it one by one, like an alternative way, like one, and like, you know, all the alternative items one by one. 7. And if you accidentally select this, when you're selecting it, by the way, like you have to hold on shift to select multiple object. And if you accidentally select this, you can hold on control and select this again to deselect it, basically. So as we move on, okay, there's one accidental selection. Just the alternative items. In Grasshopper, this would be a lot more simpler way to do it. So, yeah, if you're interested, yeah, we can go through that a bit later. But we're gonna deal with Grasshopper, but in a far more useful way, which Rhino cannot do. So that'll be interesting, I guess. So yeah. So first, we just created this. That's fair enough. I'm going to make it as a group. You can either use this icon, yeah, group objects, or you can use Control G to make this as a group. And to ungroup it, you can use Control Shift G. That'll make, make it. That'll ungroup it basically. Yeah. I'm going to type show, and then yeah, everything's revealed. And these two are basically going to be just pure, maybe concrete or a thick base, and we can do something interesting in these two parts of it. Right, so let's do something for these two. I'm gonna just type offset srf, offset surface, and then you can see it's going to show a certain direction. I can change the direction using flip all. For now, I'm just gonna move it outside and then type a distance, let's say 0.08. So that's 8 centimeters basically. It's not that thick, but it's fine. It works. And finally, you can make this thick as well. So offset surface direction, maybe you can move it inwards this time. Or it's up to you. It's fine. Yeah, let's move it inwards. So what to do now? We can create a distance. Let's say 0.08. That's fine. And let's flip it. And then, yeah. There we go. It's just gonna, yeah, do it one by one, and you get this crazy output. And now let's say I want to transform this and like give it a slight bend. What can I do now? So let's say I want to select this and like, bend it to a certain degree. I'm going to go to transform. You can, work with all this transformation tool. Right now I'm just going to use bend just to give it a taste. Like I'm gonna use the center midpoint as the pivot point, and then like change the direction. If you go too much, it'll look like that. I'm gonna stick with a slight bend just for the namesake. That's fine. Alright, that's fair enough. Like, it's fine. What's left? Yeah, we have to create something for this, right? So before creating something for this, we'll go to Grasshopper. We'll learn some basics in Grasshopper, and then we'll come back here, and then we're going to continue creating something crazy for this bit. Okay. So let's go to Grasshopper. You can just open Grasshopper from here. So before going to Grasshopper, let me tell you something about Grasshopper. So Grasshopper is actually kind of like a plugin for Rhino. As soon as you install Rhino, it'll be on there without you worrying about it. Here we can see the difference between the objects created in Rhino versus Grasshopper. Basically, this particular object is created in Rhino. It's basically, you can just create a circle and then you can extrude it to create a cylinder. Let's see how it's done in Grasshopper. So you can see there is a cylinder component, and it's asked for a base, a radius, and length. So in the base tool, we have we have given a point right there, and the point doesn't have any x, y, z data. So it's all in the origin, it is 0, 0, 0. And then there is radius, where you can give a certain radius to it, and then length, and then you get a length. So that's how basically you create certain objects in Grasshopper. And there are different ways to do a single function in Rhino or Grasshopper. First, let's say I want to create a circle that's linked with Rhino. So it would look kind of like this. It's like a container that could link Rhino with Grasshopper. So whenever I change a certain object in Rhino, it'll change in Grasshopper. So that'll look like this. And this one is like made entirely from scratch in Grasshopper, with the point as a plane, with R for radius, and then there is a circle component. So we're going to deal with this and we'll see everything clearly further down. So yeah, right now just keep this in mind. And there are like different types of object status when it comes to Grasshopper. Like, the default status would be this light gray object status, where you will just, work with it doesn't mean anything. It means like your component is working properly and it has no mistakes. And if you hide the preview, it'll look like it's dark gray, and if it'll look completely grayed out if you disabled it. Whenever you select it, the object would look green whenever there is an error and there is the process is stopped. It'll look red, and you can see what error is this. There will be like a bubble pop up near it. And then finally, the orange bit, that is when you are losing certain data in, not like lose it, whenever the component lacks certain data, it look orange. So these are the object status. When we go to the actual software, you would understand it better. Yeah, let's open Grasshopper now. So in Standard tab, here's Grasshopper icon. You can type Grasshopper or you can click on it. So once you click on it, the Grasshopper would load and then it'll open. Right, so here we are in Grasshopper. I've just snapped it to the right side of my screen, and I'm gonna go to File, New Document, and that's a blank canvas. So we're not gonna use any plugins in this particular tutorial, but I'm gonna use Bifocus, which is a plugin, but you don't need to use it. This is just for you guys to see the names of the component. Basically, you can get it, download it from the website Food for Rhino if you want it. But for now, you don't need this. The reason I'm using it is if I'm using a component, it by default would look like this for you guys. So you can change this appearance by, I'm gonna need the icons. So I just changed it to icons, and also draw full names. So I can see the name, the icon on all these full names. If I'm using this particular plugin, if I'm not using it, I can't see the name of this component. So I'm just gonna use this plugin, but it won't change any of the outputs. You don't need to use this at all. Okay. So let's get rid of this. Let's get started with the first set of operation. First, let's see how Grasshopper works. So Grasshopper basically takes in an input, processes it in a component. It's basically coding, but it's a simpler version of it, and it processes it and gives you the output. There could be multiple input, and there also could be multiple outputs, right? So this is basically the function of how it works, how Grasshopper works. And as time moves on, as it goes on, this output would be the input for the next component, right? So this output is the input for the next component, and then there we go. So it'll move on like that, and it goes on like this, right? So the parameters would be written here, so you would know if it's the right thing to add on. That's how Grasshopper basically works. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a simple operation. Let's make a simple operation. Let's say, let's create a line with 2 points. So to create a point, to create any component, I can double click here. I can type it like, let's say point, POINT. So I can get this point over here, or else I can also get it right from here as well. So all of these hexagonal and a single component looking thing are basically called as floaters, or it could be like a container for any sort of object. So this is a point container, so it can contain only points. And as we know, this is orange, so it lacks data. So we have to set data manually. And when it's an orange container, like these hexagonal objects, we have to set it manually. We cannot create it from scratch usually. So you'll understand it a bit more when we move on. You can construct a point as well. I'll tell you how. So here's a point. And you can control this point by selecting it, and then you can control it from the Rhino window. So we have created a point in Grasshopper, and you can look that in Rhino. That's basically how it works. And let's say I want to know the coordinates of these points. I can just add a panel to it, and you can see it's 51 meters in x-axis, 5 meters in y-axis, and 0 meters in z-axis. If you want to move it to z-axis, you just have to move it to z-axis, and you can see the change over here, right? And let's say I want to construct a point from scratch with a proper diamond, proper dimensions, like coordinates. Vector, here's a point. X coordinate, let's say 50. I can just type 50 and I'll get a number slider that ranges from 0 to 50, 0 to 100. I can move wherever I want. I can double click here to edit the settings. I can set minimum value, maximum value. I can make it, a floating number that is, you can add decimal points to it, and I can name the number slider into something else. I can set a value. I can set 1 decimal point maybe, and I can also accurately set, like, double click here, set like 50.0. So that's basically how you can, make it accurate. So X axis, there you go. You can set the same for Y axis if you want to. There you go. So like you can control both data at the same time. That'll be like a linear graph, X equal to Y basically. And now let's say I want to give like something closer to here. Let's say 3. That will give me a number slider from 0 to 10. You can change it later on if you want to. And there we go. And then Z coordinate, let's say I don't want it. Even better, let's say I want to create a point derived from these data. So I have like X, Y, X and Y and Z. Let's say I don't want the Z data, I just want the X and Y data of this point. So what can I do now? I can go to vector again. Here's deconstruct point. I can deconstruct this. I'll get all the X, Y, and Z data separately, one by one. X, Y, and Z. These are individual points. I just deconstructed it. Sorry, individual data that I got by deconstructing it. Now I'm going to set the X and Y here. Now you can see I have created a point without the Z data. So you can see, like, if I control this, the Z data, no matter how much I change the Z data, it is just going to stick like that. And if I don't want to consider the Y data, it'll go like this. So Z data, yeah, it'll move up. But, sorry, yeah, the Z component, like, how far you move up is going to be the Y, how far it goes in the Y direction. So that's an interesting thing to do, actually. So now let's connect these 2 points into something, and let's make a line. So let's type line, and this is a container again. Let's skip that. This is a line that creates a line between 2 points. Let's select that. Let's say this is let's ask for start and end point. So here's the start point, and here's the end point, let's say. And whenever you move this line, the whole thing would change like that. Right. So it's all data driven, and whenever you change the previous data, it'll affect the data at front. So that's basically how you can create a line. So that's something, I guess. And yeah, let's move on to create something a bit more interesting, let's say. So just like this line, we can create stuff like, maybe I'm going to move this point. I'm going to create another point maybe. And let's create a rectangle this time. RECT, rectangle. I'm going to give a XY, size. X and Y is a square, 5.0. And I'm going to make it as a surface. So I can either use boundary surface, or I can also use just surface container. And that will automatically detect any planar surface and converts it into a surface. And then I'm going to hide the previous object so that it looks clean, and I don't want to see the previous stuff. I just middle clicked it, and then I turned off the preview. Now I'm going to extrude it. EXTRUDE, extrude. Obviously, here's the base. And the direction, we have to set a direction basically. Like, it could be extruded in any direction. So I want this to be extruded in Z direction. So I can set a Z vector and the factor. So it's unit Z, unit means 1. So factor would be multiplied by 1. So here, let's say 5 is the multiplier here. And then there you go. So I can still control this bit, the rectangle. I can also give a separate thing. By the way, like if you're wondering how I copied this, you can either use Control C, Control V, or while dragging, just tap Alt, and then that'll create a copy if you're wondering. Right, so that's how I control the square. If I want to make it as a rectangle, I can do that. And if I want to make it as a cube, I can just set give the same data to all of this stuff, and that's basically like a scale. Let's say just let's give this a bit of freedom, and let's move this wherever we want. Cool, that's fair enough. Right, so we have an extrude here. Now, basically, you can use all these kind of move. I'm going to move this in. It's already moved this in Z direction. It's basically a copy because the last part is left behind. You can hide it to make it a proper copy. And then you can give a direction, let's say X direction. And then you can give a distance, let's say 50. Right, so that's gone. So you can like control it using this number slider. Let's move, and then you'll be able to rotate it. Let's say rotate, geometry, angle. You have to set it to degrees to give a proper degree. So 0 to 360. So if you want to set a number slider to a certain limit, so 0.360 will allow you to create a number slider from 0 to 360. That's basically the degrees. There we go. So 0, and you can see it's rotating with the origin as center. Right? Now let's say I want to create my own center, maybe the middle of this particular cube. So I can make a center from the centroid of it. So to get the centroid, I'm going to use the command area, geometry to area, and then you'll get a centroid. So the centroid and area is the output of this particular tool. So the air surface area is 215.6 square meters, and also you'll get a point in the middle of it. That's the centroid. So I can use that here as a plane. The plane is basically XY by default. You can change the plane to any other plane. Let's say YZ plane. By default, it's XY, so you can't see this properly. So YZ plane, and it'll rotate in YZ direction. I can hide the previous ones. So that's a rotation, right? Let's take this out so it just rotates in this direction. That's fine. And then finally, you can take a look at scale. So these are like normal operations that we already, got used to. So once it's done, we'll go to how to manipulate this one, right? Right. So plane, XY, all good. That's fine. And now what I'm going to do is create a scale. This is actually scale non-uniform, scale in U. So if I just type 0.5 here, it'll scale it half the size, only in X direction. If you gave all three here, so it'll act as normal scale. If you give it a different value, it'll act accordingly. This is scale non-uniform, scale in U. There's also another scale that is the normal one. So scale, and this is the normal scale. So I can see here's the it scales from the center, right? So okay, we have to give the center again. Let's take this out. Let's use this number slider, and you can see it is going to be scaled in this way. So that's basically how the Grasshopper works, right? Okay. All good. Now let's create something with this, basically, right? So this is just how Grasshopper works for normal activities. Now let's create something with this particular surface. Let's bring this surface inside Grasshopper. Let's select this. And we're going to bring this as a surface. So here's surface. Right click, set one surface. And then we have set this surface and we import it into Grasshopper. So when I move the surface or do something with the surface, it'll automatically update inside Grasshopper. So if I'm doing something else, like if I'm deleting it, like it's gonna be gone. So you have to be careful with that. And now what I'm gonna do is I am going to internalize it. So what happens, even if I delete this still is gonna be working. So yeah, so if I just delete it, if I tend to be clumsy, and if I delete it, this won't be an issue. If I want it back, you can just middle click here and you can click on this egg icon that's bake, and that'll bring it into Rhino. So you don't have to worry about it, right? Cool. All right. So right now I'm going to be using this to create my custom geometry. So let's create some interesting pattern, and we can basically use isotrim. That's a tool to create it. So let me show an example from my Instagram. So here's my Instagram. So the stuff that I'm going to show you is basically something like this. So you can see like it's a random surface, and I added a geometry that is going to repeat itself to create an interesting output. So this is what we're going to do. Basically, let's create a geometry that's a bit exciting geometric pattern. Let's say I'm going to go to images. Let's find an interesting pattern. For me, this kind of looks interesting, right? Yeah, let's try doing something like this. Why not? Cool, fair enough. Let me just like copy this image, and I'm going to paste this in Rhino here. Let's go to top view. I'm going to drag it. So this is basically what we got from the internet. And let's create some sort of tileable structure with it. So I'm gonna choose this bit. Let's say this, for example, this bit over here, and then I'm going to split this. So I'm gonna remove this part. Yeah, there you go. And let's mirror this, and let's see how it looks. So mirror this, and mirror this as well. Not mirror, basically it's actually going to be a copy. That's fine. Let's mirror this, why not? Let's mirror this and let's see how it looks. So there's going to be a single pattern, let's say. So let's just focus on this bit, right? So let me make a group or join it together. Why not? Let's join it together. And then I'm going to trim a particular part of it. Let's say, let's create a trim from here to here, and then maybe here. Okay. Now, you can use Control Shift, subselection. If I haven't told you already, Control Shift is to subselection. Yeah. So here's the object. I'm going to split this again. Yeah, there you go. And now let's do another mirror. And also like this one could be gone as well, I guess. Yeah, let's see. We can create the custom pattern later on, but it's fine, just to get an idea. So I'm going to mirror this and mirror the same here. That's fine. Actually, I would like to keep that bit. Let's go back. Yeah, perfect. Okay. Let's mirror this again. Mirror. Another mirror over here. Okay, this is going to be a single set of pattern for us. Cool. So let's take this as an inspiration and let's do something with it. Okay, so this is going to be a tileable pattern, right? So I'm gonna group this and let's check how tileable it is. So our final geometry would look something like this, basically. Yeah, that's fine. Look like this, that's not bad. So yeah, let's try to recreate this. And I'm going to be careful with the edges as well, like the corners. So yeah, let me delete all this stuff. I'm going to create a rectangle. This is going to be the boundary for us. And let's create a line, maybe from here to here. And this is my first bit, like the first set of geometry, and then there is another that's going underneath. So that's the intertwining part of it. So let's first make this one, and then copy the same thing and do another. Let's delete that. Let's hide this for now. Hide this and delete this maybe. Cool. I'm going to make join it together, make an offset maybe. Offset. Don't have to worry about the scale for now. Okay, this is through point. There we go. I'm going to do another offset. There we go. Yeah, now let's make this as a proper, B-rep or as polysurface. So first I'm going to loft it. Curve and this curve. I'm going to loft it again. Perspective for now. Let's minimize this for now. I'm going to join these two together. Let's get rid of all the curves. Let me select this middle part. Polysurface edge. Again, polysurface edge. I'm gonna move it up to a little bit. Go to top view. And let's check if it's still, under this rectangle. Actually, this bit is protruding outside. So let's split this, select this, split, and then split this thing. And there we go. I got that out. Let's save this, why not? And let me go to maybe right view or front view. Let's zoom this closer. And I'm going to mirror this in my mirror. You can type mirror or you can just use the icon. And then I created this particular 3D object over here. Cool. Interesting. You can leave this gap, it's fine because it's going to be closed when it's tiled. If you are conscious about it, you can close it by maybe you can just add like a surface, this turn off project, and then you can add like a surface over here. Same thing over here. If it's necessary, I don't think it is necessary, but if you feel like it, you can add this. And then you can join it all together, and now it's a solid surface over here. And now I'm going to select this center bit, and I'm going to move this up a little bit, right? So let's go to top view again. I'm going to use the same thing and rotate it, let's say, to 90 degrees. It's not actually 90 degrees. Let's say, let's see the image and let's take a look. So it's basically going like this, like here to here. So what to do? We have to just mirror this. Let's say -1 to mirror this with scale. So yeah, that's it. And as we can see, like, we can remove this bit as well before mirroring it. So I'm gonna delete this. We don't need that anymore. I'm gonna draw a line. Maybe you can turn on project. I'm gonna draw a line in here. Let's move it down a bit. Select it, split, select the cutter, hit enter, and that's split, done. And we got a proper geometry here. Now, I'm going to mirror it, -1, and then again mirror it in this way as well. All good now. Have some, collision going on. But yeah, we can minimize that by just moving it around and, finding the best possible intersection. Yeah, that's not bad. That's fairly all right. Okay, now let's make it as a group. And let's go to top view, then do the mirroring bit. Maybe shade it. Let's mirror this. Let's mirror this once here. And let's mirror this twice here. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this as my single geometry. So this is already a repeating geometry, so I don't have to care about this. This is my unit geometry. So I'm going to maybe make it as a block even, or just group it for now. It doesn't matter. Perfect. This is what is going to be repeating in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this out. Sorry, not out. Take this inside Grasshopper. So select it. Maybe bring this as a B-rep. Basically polysurfaces. Right click, set multiple B-reps. So hence we have multiple B-reps in here. We can make it as a group. Before that, yeah, like, why not? We can make it as a group. Just to avoid some confusion later on. Group. And I can also, import this, like internalize it and then delete it if I want to. Same thing with that. All right, let's keep it like that. I'm going to save the Grasshopper file just to be safe. Or, if you don't want to delete it, you can just keep it. Yeah, you don't have to delete it. We can internalize it, but I'm just going to keep it as it is and maybe hide it. It's fine. So let's get started with script. So we got the initial data. So now all that matters is we executing it. So first we got this particular surface. So basically what we're going to do is, we're going to split the surface into multiple pieces using a tool called isotrim. All right. And then we'll be creating this surface into multiple little boxes. Now we're going to cut the surface using isolines. We're going to create multiple boxes with it. And using Box Morph, we're going to take this and put it in these boxes, individual boxes. That's how this is working. Don't worry if you didn't get it right now. It's going to make sense pretty soon. Right, and again, like a disclaimer, there are a lot of simpler stuff to do with Grasshopper without, understanding it intuitively. But this is one. This is something would be a bit counterintuitive. So don't get disheartened if you did not understand it properly. But I'll try my best to make it simpler and more intuitive. All right. Cool. Let's take the surface and then like split it into multiple pieces using the tool isotrim. So the name isotrim comes from the iso curves, that UV lines we have discussed in the beginning of the video. Iso curves. So sorry, isotrim. Isotrim. Let's take the surface, and the domain would be domain is basically limits. So we can think of domain as limits. So in here, it's a two-dimensional surface, so we need a two-dimensional domain, and we have to divide it into multiple pieces. So we are going to use this particular domain, divide domain 2. So divide domain 2, basically divide domain squared, basically means it's a two-dimensional domain, and it's going to divide it into multiple pieces. And you can see the UV, and you can see the UV count that we can give to it. So let's say I want, it's already 10 and 10 by default, 10 and 10. You can just straight away give a surface to domain and segments to the output domain, and then you can see it's divided into 10 by 10 pieces, right? So let's say I need 20 in U, so I can give 20 in U, and let's say I want 4 in V, I can give 4 in V. So that's how that works. So let's keep it minimal, and we can increase if necessary. Okay, let's keep it like that. We can increase it whenever it's needed. Okay, perfect. Now, the final step is actually not final step. We have a couple more steps, but we have to convert this surface into boxes. So surface box, and we already have the domain. So we already have the domain. So domain's gonna go here. Height, let's say I want it not more than 0.15. That's in meters, right? So yeah, it's 15 centimeters. That's fair enough. And also, I would like to make a little update to my design here. I would like to make a frame in here. So I'm gonna turn this back on, and let's create a frame just to avoid some complications. It may make it a little bit ugly, but the edges would be a little more cleaner. So I'm ready to make that trade-off. But you'll be able to edit edges later on, but I'm just gonna make it a bit more beginner friendly. So I'm just gonna make it offset. Oh, sorry. I'm gonna create like a loft. Yeah. And now I can extrude this to match the thickness of this. Let me go to front view. Bring this to the bottom of this. Yeah. And let's extrude this now. I can get rid of this. Yeah, now let's extrude this until it hits the top part. So now it's a bit more, cleaner. There is less room for mistakes, basically. So you can replace it, set multiple beer ups. There we go. And I can internalize it again. And maybe hide this one. Okay, perfect. But yeah, it might not look as good as otherwise, but it does the job. It's fine. All right, so final step, box morph. All right, so here's the geometry. Sorry, just a target. Distant box is basically the target. And this would be the geometry and reference, because it's already aligned with the XY axis. So you don't have to give a reference box. You can use the same geometry as the reference. So as soon as you've done that, you can see this. is formed. So like it's already, it's already working. I can hide all the previous items and you can see how it's working. It's all good. Like we don't have to do anything to change it. Now it's fine. I'm gonna create a floor plane just to avoid some clipping. Okay, that's fair enough. Okay, 1 sec. All right, that's fine. All right, so now I can increase the U count and V count as far as I want. Let this be like this. Like if you don't want to change it, it's fine. If you want to change it, you're more than welcome to change it like that. Let's keep it to minimum. It's already looking good. All right. So now I can change the height as well here to make it a little bit puffier. All right, perfect. Now I can either export it in Rhino or I can give a material in here itself. There's two ways to give a material in Grasshopper. We can add a custom preview. I'm going to hide this one. All right. And add a color swatch as to give a color, basically like that. Or if you're okay with giving a material from Rhino itself, you can create a material in Rhino. Let's create all the materials for this basically. So let's say this material could be a metal. Let's say gold. Why not? If it doesn't work, we can change it. I'm going to give a gold color. I'm going to delete this color swatch. I'm going to right click here, set one material, gold. And if you go to rendered view, you can see the material working, right? So yeah, that's basically it. And finally, let's say I want to add wooden material, more types, import. Maybe I can create, go to Word, African take polished maybe, yeah. So I got a new material here. So let's select this part, right click here, assign to object. There we go, we got a material. That's perfect. Now, let's say I want to bring this bit, like the Grasshopper part, completely inside Rhino. I can right click here, bake. If I want it to be a group, I can hit on S please. And if I want it in a different layer, I can hit on, select that layer and hit OK. So that's pretty much it. It's already here. And let's save this. And if I quit this, I can see this in Rhino, but there is something wrong with the material. It didn't work. So it's fine. I can go here to this layer, right click here, select objects, and then, it's in a different layer, right? So if we go to shader, you can see the color. And then, let's go to rendered. And then I'm going to go to materials, right click here. Okay, it's gone. Let me do that again. Layer, or you can assign a separate material to the layer. So we can go to layer, there's material. I can give a material from here. You can create a different material, or you can create from the library that you created and hit OK. There we go, that's clean. Perfect. And there is something here. We can, if you are not, if you don't want to see this, you can split this by just selecting it. Sorry, I can select this and then use split, select this cutter, hit enter. and then you'll be able to delete this part. Have to hold on Control and Shift together to select this, and you'll be able to get rid of it. Control Shift, select this bit, and delete it. That's a perfect output, I would say. Yep. If you just get rid of this ground plane, you can go to render settings and you can add a ground plane here. That's also a thing. But yeah, now you're free to add assets to it. You can add different assets from the internet. Right now for this tutorial, I'm not going to add anything more than this. I'm satisfied with this output. To export it, I'm just going to hit render, I can set the resolution, let's say 1920 to 1080. I can just, check with the settings a bit more, but I'm just gonna leave it like that. For this tutorial, I'm not gonna go that deep. Let's just, hit a render and, take a output from here. Let's set a view first. I'm gonna use set view and set a camera, and you can save that view basically. So let's say I like this view. We can fiddle with the settings a bit. So once you are okay with a particular view, you can save that view and you can give it a name. Let's say view 1, why not? So let's say I want to add a floor plate, right? And if I want to come back to that particular view, I can double click here and I'm back right where I left, right? So I can give a different color to this, but let's keep it simple. We don't have to do more than what's required. Right now for this tutorial, this is fine. This is going to be the output. As we move on, we can explore a bit more settings and everything to make it look a bit more pretty. Right now, maybe I can give it a gradient. Yeah, cool. Yeah, right now this is going to be the output, and yeah, we're going to take it out. So that's pretty much it for today's tutorial. We'll be dealing with sub-D with Grasshopper for the next tutorial. Further down the line, we'll be dealing with more complex concepts with Grasshopper to even advanced level. So I'll be continue doing this. Subscribe and stay tuned, so there'll be a lot more coming hereafter. So that's it for today. Catch you guys in the next video. See ya.